So this is social emotional learning course C, tools for teaching and integrating SEL. And I think we're going to get started because I don't see, it looks like, just want to make sure there's no one in the waiting room. Okay.
Hello, good afternoon. Sorry to interrupt. I've not gotten my CTL hour for the second class two. This is my third class now. I've not gotten any for the past two.
Okay. Did you email? Okay, you know what? Put your information in, send me a direct message in the chat with all of you, with the courses that you've taken. Give me your email address and I will follow up for you. And I'm going to put my email in the chat a little bit later on. So if you don't hear back from me today, you can email me tomorrow. You're welcome. Okay, so we're going to get started. So if you haven't already, if you could please put your information in the chat. So where you teach and what you teach. And I'm going to keep moving. So I'm Christine and I am your facilitator for today. If you have taken the first two SEL courses, we have already met. And if this is your first one, welcome. I am a former elementary school teacher. I taught for 11 years and I have been a consultant for the last 10 years. And I'm a literacy consultant, but SEL is one of my passions in my life and in schools. So I was really excited to be teaching these courses. And so I have a lot of resources to share. Okay, so again, if you haven't, grade your grade and subjects, and then just a quick, where would you go if you had a dream vacation, if you had an unlimited budget, where would you go on vacation? Just as kind of a lighthearted way to get started. Oh, Iceland with no kids. Sounds good. Iceland is like the hot spot. I feel like Iceland and Croatia are the two places that I keep hearing about. China and Bali, I could do that. Sounds good. I want to see the Great Wall. That's one of my dreams. Nice. Okay. A new Greek island. Oh, I guess you have been to a few, and I think that's a Greek last name. Okay. All right. I would go, I don't know. There's so many places I want to go. I think Ireland is on my list. Australia is on my list. Madagascar, for some reason, has always been on my list. Croatia, Costa Rica. I'll go pretty much anywhere. Someone wants to pay for it, I'll go. Okay. So these are our norms for today. These are the same norms. If you have been, South Africa sounds good. Yeah, if you have been in any of our classes, you would have seen these norms. So they're pretty typical. We want you to just be here now to the best of your ability, knowing that there are always a million things happening around you. We're going to stick to the protocol. We want to hear all voices. We're going to start and end on time. We look at this through an inquiry stance, taking responsibility for impact, which means controlling, taking responsibility for what we can control. There are a lot of things that are not within our control, but there are many things that are. So that's what we're going to focus on. And we are going to ground our statements in evidence. So this is course C in the social emotional learning. I don't know what the right word is, but courses. And so you can see that there are 3 more. If you have taken the first 3, there are 3 more. And I will be here. Whoops. I will be here for all 6 of them. So if you are taking the next one, I will see you next week. So these are our essential questions and objectives for today. So we're really focusing on why educator well-being is just as essential as student well-being, and why your well-being is going to impact your teaching. Want to hopefully give you some tools to incorporate more wellness rituals across learning environments, both for you and for your students. And so the objectives are to understand the value of well-being practices for educators and figure out a way to incorporate that into your day when you feel like there's never enough time. And also how you can think about modeling some of these behaviors for your students so that they have them, in their toolbox as well. But really the focus for today is on you, and tangentially how that is going to positively impact your students and how you can take what you're learning for yourself and what you're implementing for yourself into the classroom. But the focus is really on you guys, which we spend a lot of time focusing on students, as we should, but it's really important to recognize that teachers have their own social emotional needs, and they are just as crucial as the needs of their students. Okay, so I have put the link to the note catcher in the chat, but if you weren't logged in, you may not see it. So I'm going to put it again. Why isn't this? No. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. That is the link for the note catcher. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And if at any point you have a question or I'm sorry, I feel like no, I guess not. If you have a question or a comment, you can feel free to unmute and just kind of call it out. You can put it in the chat, whatever is most comfortable for you. So the Castle 5, if you've taken the first 2 SEL courses, you have been through this already, but the Castle 5, Castle is the organization, that's seen as kind of an expert organization on social emotional learning. It's the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. They talk about 5 areas of competence, and they give examples for each. So the 5 areas are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. So we're going to be touching on those today. We will not be talking about them in quite as much depth as we did in the preceding 2 courses, but we will talk about them. And so if you have not taken the first 2 courses, I encourage you, they will be offered live again in we're going to go through the cycle. So in 4 weeks for the first one for A and 5 weeks for B, or you can also take them asynchronously through Solved. And we will talk about that towards the end of the session. Okay, so you're going to open your note catcher and take a moment to fill out this table here. and you're going to have an opportunity to share some of it in the chat. So just jot down some thoughts around what's happening for you right now in your head, in your heart, what's going on. Make a list as long as you want it to be. Then just think about, how are you today? How are you feeling? What's your how are you feeling about life? How are you feeling about yourself? All of those things. And then thinking about what you can, maybe you've done already, or what you could do today to kind of support yourself in your well-being. I'm going to stop sharing and give you a minute to jot that down. So for those of you who just logged in, I'm going to put the note catcher link in the chat, and we're on the first exercise in the note catcher. Just kind of taking stock of where you are emotionally right now. And Carmen and Angelica, I see the note in the chat. That's totally fine. Just want to make sure that you both fill out the survey at the end so that you get your certificates. Okay, so if you're still writing, take your time. If not, if you have finished up, just share in the chat something that you have done or plan to do today to support your own well-being. So for example, I took a walk today. I did a short workout this morning, and I took a walk today. Those are two of the things that I've done in my day. Running is great. Drink more water. I know, it's so simple, but it makes a huge difference. I love that. Leaving your classroom at lunch to walk around like a normal person. So true. Yeah, sitting, yep. Nice. Sitting in the car before going into the house. Yeah, anything you can do. I mean, ideally you want to have like an hour to yourself, but that's not always reality. So we take it where we can get it. And I think like the more creative you can be and where you find those moments, the better. Some things, like I try to coach teachers on how they can kind of incorporate these things into their lives in ways when they feel like they don't have time. And so some of the things that I think about and that I do myself, inhaling and exhaling, you can always breathe, right? No matter where you are, you can breathe. Like listening to a great song when you drive to work in the morning and like singing at the top of your lungs. I do that sitting on the Staten Island Expressway. I have no idea what the people around me think. I don't care. It just makes me feel good. Stuff like that. Lighting a candle, if you can do that safely at home, if you don't have little kids running around, or essential oils, hot shower, just enjoying your cup of coffee in the morning, any of those things that kind of just make you feel a little more connected to yourself are all really positive things that don't take a lot of time, but will just enhance your day and help you feel a little bit more grounded. Okay, we are moving on. Okay. So one of the things, this is, I wanted to just share this with you as you're thinking about, like, especially the checking in part about like what's on your mind, what's in your heart, and thinking about what are the emotions that you're feeling. If you have taken some of the other courses, everyone can still see the slide. Yeah, okay. Okay. So if you've taken some of the other courses, you've heard his name mentioned. So Mark Brackett is the founder and director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, and he's a professor at the Child Study Center at Yale. And so he's, an expert on emotions and mindfulness and all the things that we're talking about. And so I just was reading an article that is linked in the resources that I'm going to share with you. And he was asked, like, what gives people the most trouble around kind of emotional health? And he said, I'm just going to read it to you directly. Labeling. Most people have not been brought up with an advanced emotional vocabulary, and even when they learn words, they don't really know what they mean. Everybody's stressed or anxious, but do they know the difference? My research shows that people clump together the anxiety, the stress, the fear, the pressure, the overwhelm, the worry. It's all one big clump of red on our mood meter. That makes it hard to find the best strategy to regulate those feelings. I thought that was really interesting. I kind of knew, this, because I've read some of his stuff before, that people are not great at labeling their emotions, but I don't know, for whatever reason, this hit me today as how important it is to be as specific as possible about your emotions, because that's going to impact the way you deal with them. And so he's created this thing called the mood meter, which you may have seen like iterations of. Excuse me. The mood meter is a tool that helps you plot how you feel as a product of two dimensions, pleasantness and energy. If you're high pleasant, high energy, you're in the yellow, the generally happy emotions. If you're high pleasant but low in energy, you're in the green, chilled out. If you're unpleasant with a lot of energy, you're in the red, the angry emotions. And if you're unpleasant with a little bit of energy, you're in the blue, sad. The mood meter helps us take all the complexities that are in our minds and bodies and put it into an emotional space. It's easy for people to say, I'm in the yellow or green or blue or red. And then from there, we can get more granular by asking people questions. Well, what's happening for you right now? Oh, I'm doing an interview. That's exciting. I'm about to go to bed. I'm tired. Or I'm about to do a presentation. I'm overwhelmed. So I thought that that was really helpful in kind of giving clarity around emotions, and how when you can be really specific about your emotions, it just helps you figure out the best way to handle them, to be so that you feel as supported as you want to be by yourself and then by anyone that you're communicating with. And again, I will share that article with you a little bit later. Okay, so why should we care about SEL skills for educators? Well, the prevalence of teacher frustration and burnout and compassion fatigue is alarming. Teachers are more likely than the general population to report experience frequent job-related stress and symptoms of depression. And adult well-being has an effect on student well-being, on students' motivation to learn, on the overall school climate, and on student academic performance. So this is a statistic. This is from a 2021 US teacher survey. So, not even post-pandemic, really in the middle of the pandemic. 1 in 4 teachers considered leaving their job by the end of the 2021 school year. Black teachers were more likely to leave the profession. So I want to give you a few more facts, and you're all living this. I don't have to tell you that the rates of burnout are high. I don't have to tell you that, teachers are struggling and feeling overwhelmed and like there's never enough time in the day and that the demands are impossible to meet. You know it, you live it every day. But just to kind of, you may or may not know all of these statistics. So, just to kind of help put perspective on it, help you feel like you're less alone if you're experiencing these things. I just wanted to share some of these facts with you. So, a much higher proportion of teachers reported frequent job-related stress and symptoms of depression than the general adult population. And the two highest ranked stressors were the mode of instruction and health. So mode of instruction is specific, I think most specifically related to during the lockdown period of the pandemic. And most of these statistics are pandemic related. I have some others I'm going to share with you a little bit later. But, I think it was hard before the pandemic. Teaching has become more and more difficult every year. The pandemic really just, I think, skyrocketed that, and we're still seeing the fallout. So teachers need to take care of their own social emotional health before they can address that of their students. It's, there's the expression, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so if you are emotionally drained, you really can't be there for your students. And by the same token, if you're not managing your social emotional needs, you can't model for students how to do that either. So these are some of the statistics. There are 500,000 plus fewer educators in the American public school system post-pandemic. So 500,000 fewer teachers in the system than there were before COVID. More than 300,000 public school teachers and other education-related staff left their jobs between February 2020 and May 2022. Almost 30% of teachers were found to be chronically absent. So almost 1 in 3 were chronically absent in 2021. And chronically absent is defined as missing more than 10 days during the academic school year. And so that, of course, is going to negatively impact student test scores, budgeting, just student overall, well-being and feelings of security. And teachers in K-12 grades are the #1 most burnt out profession in the United States. That one really surprised me because I thought it was going to be healthcare workers. It's the rate of burnout in K-12 teachers is 14% higher than in other industries. 28% of educators experience symptoms of depression, almost double that of other professions. So this is what we're dealing with. It doesn't have to be this way. There are things that you can do to mitigate that, but that's where we are. And so knowing what the pressures are that you're facing is a really important first step to then decide how you're going to support yourself and make sure that you are prioritizing your own health and well-being. Okay, so how do we teach our children self-awareness and self-management, social awareness and relationship building if we are struggling ourselves and we are not taking the time to invest in our own well-being? So as teachers, we're caregivers. That's how we're wired. And so we have a tendency to put other people first. It's hard to leave your job at work sometimes. You bring home the problems of your students with you, the frustrations, all of those things. And so that can be really a really heavy emotional burden. And then, it's a heavy emotional burden anyway when you're in school. But if you can't leave it at school, then you're bringing that burden home with you, and then it starts to impact your home life. And then it just snowballs. So, but there are ways that you can learn to cope with the stress and compartmentalize when appropriate so that you can deal with it in a healthier manner. So, and then in addition to the negative impact that it has on you as a teacher, it's going to have a negative impact on your students. Research shows that teachers who don't practice healthy social emotional coping mechanisms have classrooms that have poorer student outcomes. And there's speculation that, part of it could be that it's more difficult to build relationships with students if you're struggling yourself, because you don't have the emotional capacity to take that on because you're just, emotionally drained. Or maybe it's that you're coming into school and your stress level is really high, and so you're agitated and you're irritable, and then that comes through, and then your kids are doing whatever they're doing, and you don't have the same level of calm that you might otherwise, and so it comes through in your teaching. So not dealing with your stress is going to have negative impacts both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So we want to, come up with ways to improve teacher social emotional health. Now, ideally, this is going to be coming from the school, like that it's going to be provided for you, that there are going to be steps being taken to support you socially and emotionally. That is what we hope for. And I know that does happen in some schools, but also, and because the research backs it up, that when teachers have that support, when they're taught the coping skills, they see improvements in their student outcomes as well as in their own lives. So, that's the goal, is that we want schools to be able to provide that support. The reality is that doesn't always happen. So again, at the beginning, I talked about focusing on what we can control. And certainly we would, you should hopefully, and you and your colleagues can advocate within your school if you don't feel like you're getting that level of support, to create that change. But you also have a lot of control in your own life, and in your own classroom. And so, that's what we're kind of focusing on today. So small things that you can do in your classroom are things like establishing routines, taking time for mindfulness, both for yourself and even in the classroom. And, prioritizing your own health, setting boundaries where you need to set boundaries to protect yourself and your emotional well-being. And I know that that's really hard as a teacher, because there is such an expectation that you're just going to be giving and giving and giving. The demands are incredibly high. And so how can you set those boundaries? And I don't have an answer for you specifically, but what I will tell you is that when you take steps to bring down your stress and your overwhelm and your anxiety and calm your mind and calm your nervous system, you're in a much better position to make good decisions about what you need to do for yourself. And it's going to look different for each person. But when you're in a state of chronic stress, you're not functioning well. Your brain is, trying to deal with this threat that it perceives. And so all it's thinking is, how do I get from point A to point B safely? And it's not thinking strategically about anything. So the first thing you want to do is start to bring that stress level down, like through exercise, through mindfulness, through, therapy or dancing or whatever it is that helps you feel less anxious and stressed, so that you can start to think a little bit more clearly. And this is just a quote from the pandemic: when children returned in person, to in-person learning, they had to be retaught everything from sitting in their seats to active listening to how to take turns. And again, it's, teachers were feeling exhausted and burnt out already. And then to come back into that, it took its toll. Okay, so I want to share this article with you and give you some time to read it. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I want to put the link in the chat. Okay, so take about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes. So it's 3:03. Let's come back at 3:08. Take a few minutes to read that article, and then if you would like to share in the chat 1 or 2 takeaways. Okay, so thank you to those of you who put comments in the chat. Anyone else, if you'd like to just drop an insight into the chat, or you can unmute and share. Okay. But one of the things that I had read the article before and I just reread it now, and one of the things that I was thinking about going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago is because we know that there's never enough time. But thinking about what are the things that you can do, the small things that you can do that have a big impact. So simple things like greeting your students when they come into the classroom, asking kids how they're feeling, doing a quick check-in. I know a lot of teachers, like if your students, depending on the age, if they have iPads or Chromebooks or whatever, you can have them log in to, a Google Classroom, something on Google Classroom, and just, let them, like, they can, how are you feeling today? Is there, do you want to talk? Something like that. I work with a teacher who does that. It takes 2 minutes, and then she knows who she needs to check in with, if anybody, on a given day. Things like, you guys, I'm a little tired today. I couldn't sleep for whatever reason, so I may be a little bit irritable, because sometimes that happens when I'm tired. Just kind of voicing what's going on for you and modeling that for students can be just a quick way of starting to help them understand that we have these feelings and they impact the way we are on a given day. And if you happen to be an ELA teacher or social studies teacher and you're reading about something, connecting, and you probably do this already, but like, how am I connecting this to students' experiences, and giving them a window into emotions? So things like that you can do, sort of just infuse them into your lesson, is going to help with the social emotional piece, but not take an extra 15 minutes out of your day. Okay.
This is what we're talking about, standards, the topic. How are we going to really provide them the access? Now, there is flexibility, but the integrity piece here for optimal learning to happen is knowing your students and what they need. No curriculum is designed for any children in mind that we service. Remember, HMH is a nationwide curriculum. So if what you're doing with HMH in California, it's impossible it's going to be able to address their needs, plus New York City's children needs, plus Wisconsin's children's needs. So the important piece of this is your curriculum is just a tool, a vehicle.
Okay, I don't think that was for us. Okay. Okay. Okay, so again, it's this idea that if we are taking care of ourselves as humans and teachers, we're modeling that for our students. So these are just, we've talked a little bit about things that you can do. These are a few more. A few other suggestions that you can think about to incorporate into your day. Thinking about like 10 to 20 minutes in a day where you can take a break and decompress by yourself. So someone had said earlier that they get out and take a walk at lunch. That's a great idea. And even if, and I know sometimes it feels like you don't have the time, but even if you can get outside for 5 minutes, just to like, especially when the weather's nice, to feel like you're out in the world for a couple of minutes, that is hugely beneficial. Self-compassion is huge. Everyone is so hard on themselves, and we all have, or most of us, maybe you're lucky, have the voices in our heads that are constantly telling us we're falling short or making mistakes or whatever. So just making sure that that voice in your head is compassionate and that you're speaking to yourself the way you would speak to someone else, to a friend or a family member. I really like this one, a self-care emergency pack with things you can enjoy so you can de-stress during your break if you need it. So whatever that is for you, just kind of have it with you so you can just kind of escape for a few minutes. Journaling, you know, thinking it just to kind of get it out on paper. I really love when I have the time to just write kind of stream of consciousness, just dump it out on the paper and then just throw it away. It's just a nice way of kind of getting it out there. And social support. So finding a way to like talk to your colleagues or a friend or family and have a conversation about something other than work, so that you feel like you're, you know, that's not all, you know, that's not all you do. Okay, gonna show you this video.
The role teachers play in our children's lives is complex. Beyond simply teaching academics, teachers tune into each student's unique background and abilities. At the same time, they must juggle new curriculum, new technology, high-stakes testing, and many other demands. These are just some of the reasons why teachers find themselves in one of the most stressful professions. Learning to manage the stress is key to preventing burnout. But how do you do that? One way is to incorporate mindfulness into your daily life.
I really like the definition of mindfulness by John Kabat-Zinn, who said that mindfulness is living in the present moment on purpose, non-judgmental. And he often adds, as if our lives depended on it. And in some respects, our lives do depend on it, because it is that capacity to be aware of ourselves and to recognize, wow, I am here, but I'm not really here. I'm in this classroom with 24 children, but my mind is finishing an argument that I had with my spouse last night. Or my mind is worrying about what my teenage child might have gotten into last weekend. Or my mother is ill and we're struggling with whether she's going to have to go into some kind of a facility. I mean, these are things that all people in all professions have to deal with. But when you're a teacher and you're in the presence of 24 young people, and if you're not completely there, all kinds of things can go awry.
So mindfulness is not about replacing negative thoughts with positive thoughts or forcing our thoughts to be different or to have fewer thoughts. It's really about applying the medicine of awareness and non-judgmental presence to the activities of the mind. So for example, if a thought drifts in about, I'm worried about what's going to happen 6 months from now with my work situation, for example. I could go into that story and go into ruminating and worrying and really live there and kind of see the scene play out of whatever it is that I'm concerned about. Or I could just notice that thought that I'm worried about the future, and then come back to the breath, come back to this very moment right now. What am I feeling? And shift the relationship to the thinking so that I'm not just fully fused with it and following the train of thought.
When we think about it, when are we most stress-free? I would argue that we're most stress-free when we are living in the moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. And that could be playing with your children, or taking a walk in the park, or listening to your favorite music, or reading a book where you're so immersed in that book, whether you're working in the garden or pursuing any kind of hobby. That kind of presence is very, very helpful for coping, recovering, and going back to school the next day and being refreshed.
Mindfulness can also be helpful inside the classroom, especially when things don't go as planned.
If we think about a scenario, and it could be at any grade level, right? A teacher has a plan for the day, and they go in, and maybe they are excited about the plan, and they go in and they begin to carry it out. And maybe they have students working in groups, which they're excited about. They really want to promote that kind of feedback between students about their academic progress. There's lots of exciting things that are going on. Well, within about the first 15 minutes, it's all going south, right? As the teacher begins to recognize half of the students aren't prepared, they didn't do the assignment. And then I've got two groups that are run amok. One student's yelling at another, and it's starting to feel out of control. And so here's where mindfulness kicks in, right? Because if it doesn't, one can get so caught up in all of that the stress begins to build, and then I'm not doing a good job of emotional management myself. Now I'm part of the problem. I'm yelling at the kids. I'm telling them how frustrated I am that they can't get their work done. Or by the way, I could also go silent. I could go just, this is, just sit down and just let it all play out because I'm not frustrated. But all of that can be best mediated if one can stop, take a moment, observe, and make a decision about how to get this back on track. It might be a decision to say, everyone just stop, please. Put your pencils down and just be with me for a moment. And in a calm voice, sort of talk it through, maybe even take a moment to engage students in a mindful activity, putting their heads on their desk, and or whatever it happens to be, is a more humane and a more intelligent and ultimately more helpful solution. But failing to recognize what your mind is doing and how it's going to cause you to act, very problematic. Mindfulness is our way out. As Michael Singer, the author of The Untethered Soul, once said, and he said, look, when you learn to be aware of your thoughts, when that becomes primary, being aware of your thoughts more than thinking about your thoughts, that's your way out. That's the door to freedom.
Mindfulness is an effective way to manage stress, prevent burnout, and to be present, both at work and at home. For more information, check out the Ohio Department of Education's Well-Being.
And you have that video. It's linked in the resources that I will share with you at the end of the class. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how you can model SEL for students, both for your benefit and for theirs. So I'm going to just walk you through a very quick kind of meditation. So take a minute and just sit wherever you're sitting and close your eyes and just relax. So take a couple of breaths in, breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. That 2 more times. And I want you to just focus on anything that you hear. What sounds are in the background, if any? Take a minute to just listen to what the different sounds that you might be hearing, and think about what they are. You may hear voices. You may hear sounds on the street. Maybe it's really quiet right now. Just notice all of the sounds. And then just focus on your breathing. You don't have to manipulate it in any way, just notice. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So even a short moment like that can help you just feel a little bit calmer in the moment. I like to think of it as, if you walk into a stuffy room, your first reaction, and it's like the air just feels very thick and you're having trouble breathing, maybe it's kind of overheated, and your first reaction is going to be to go to the window and throw the window wide open to get some air. But even if you can't, for some reason, maybe the window is blocked and you can't open it all the way, but you can open it, an inch. That inch is still going to allow air to come into the room, and it's going to shift the air in the room. It may not be as extreme as you would like, but it will change the air in the room. So that's the way I think about mindfulness, is anything we can do to open that window and let in just a little bit of fresh air can impact the rest of our day. So it's just something to think about. And this is something that you can do just for yourself. It's also something that you can do with students. And, granted, depending on the age of the students that you work with, they may be more or less receptive. But even middle school and high school students, who are probably the ones that are going to be less receptive, they all need this really desperately. And it may take them a little while to acclimate. But if you give it some time, you may find that they become more open to it. Okay, so again, these are the competencies. We talked about them before: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. And so these are the things that you want to be thinking about for yourself, and then how you're modeling them for students. Okay. So these are some teacher wellness behaviors that you can think about. And then ways that you can model for students. again, some of your behaviors, and then how you can make them explicit for students. So really, so much of it is being transparent with your students and just letting them know what's going on for you, so that they can understand what they're seeing through your eyes. Okay, and I am looking at the time. We are not going to get through all of these slides. I'm going to stop sharing right now. All of the links from the slides are included in this document that I'm going to share with you. So anything that we covered is here, and anything that we didn't get to is here as well. And in addition to some other resources that I added that weren't part of the course, but that I thought were helpful and kind of aligned to what we were talking about today. And I am also going to put the survey link in the chat. It's on that, it's in the document that I just shared, but just to make life easier, I'm just going to put it in the chat separately so you don't have to go looking for it. Ugh, really? There we go. So fill that out. That's your ticket to getting your CTLE certificate. I know we've had some issues with that. And if you are one of those people, you can, just gonna skip through. You can email me at, and I'll put my email is on that document, but I'm also going to put it in the chat. That's me. And you can also, you can send it to me and admin@solvedconsulting.com, and we will make sure that you get it. If you are interested in more CTLE credits, you can sign up, you can scan from the slide and sign up now. And we offer all of the courses synchronously and asynchronously. So you can take a look at what we have. There are, I don't know, a plethora of choices. So in addition, so we have this, and there are 6, each course has 6 sessions. You can take, all or just a couple of them if you're interested. But if there's something that you're interested in, there are 6 sessions. So if you're interested in SEL and you want to take all 6, you can do that. If you want to jump around and take some of the others, you can do that as well. We have cultural responsive teaching. What else do we have? Working with ENLs and multi-language learners. I can't think of what the rest of them are, but there are, I think, 6 areas. And if you refer 6 DOE staff members to the courses, you will receive a $50 Amazon gift card for your classroom. And that is it. These are the email addresses again, if you want to take a screenshot, if that's easier. And that is it. So I thank you very much for your time today. If you have any questions, I'm happy to stay on for a minute. Otherwise, just make sure you fill in your survey and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.